The first time he saw me, I was ankle deep in mud, hauling up a bucket that outweighed me by 30 pounds. My arms shook, the rope burned my palms, and the sun stabbed my eyes like needles. But I didn't dare let go. Clara Stanton wouldn't know. She always knew. If the bucket tipped, or my dress dragged in the muck, or my shoes got scuffed, there'd be a belt waiting, or a slap, or worse. It didn't take much. The rope slipped once and jerked my wrist. I winced. That's when I felt the eyes. Not Clara's, someone else. Across the dry field, leaning against a gatepost like he belonged to the dust. A man in a wide hat, arms folded, horse waiting behind him like a statue. I stared too long. When I turned back, the bucket tilted and sloshed half its contents into the trough too fast, splashing my skirt. I flinched, not from the water, from the memory of what would come after. Clara's voice didn't come right away. It was his. 4 words, spoken slow, like they'd waited a long time to come out. "You're coming with me." I froze. I should have run, should have shouted for Clara, should have said something. But my throat locked up and my legs wouldn't move. My heart pounded so loud I couldn't hear the birds. He didn't step closer, just stood there, still as a windless fence. His face was hard to read beneath the hat, but his eyes were clear. Not pitying, not angry, just certain. A dry breeze blew my braid across my face. I clutched the bucket and turned away, terrified Clara might see, terrified she might not. Later that day, she did see, not the man, but the mud, my soaked skirt, my mistake. Her hand struck before the words did. By the time she called me names, my cheek was already burning. "Ungrateful little stray, you think you're owed something? Think again." I curled into the straw that night, not crying. Crying made the pain worse. Crying made her grin. But his voice stayed with me. "You're coming with me." I didn't even know his name. Still, something shifted that night. A small crack inside the wall I'd built to survive. I didn't understand what it meant yet, didn't dare to. But I remember staring up at the rafters in the dark, wondering what it would be like if someone meant those words, if someone could take me away. Not because I was useful, not because they needed a scullery girl, but just because. I didn't believe it, not yet, but for the first time, I wanted to.
The next week was a slow, stretching ache. Clara found new reasons to punish me. Dirt under my nails, a slice of bread gone too fast, a broom left leaning. She called it training, but I knew better. It was power. It was cruelty dressed in aprons and Sunday smiles for the neighbors. My arms were a canvas of blue and purple, some fading, some fresh. My back throbbed where the handle of her shoe had struck, but I didn't cry, not anymore. I'd taught myself silence, taught myself to make my face blank like stone, to keep secrets inside bones that didn't break so easy. Until one morning, I found something on the windowsill. A half loaf of bread, still warm. I blinked at it like it might vanish. Clara never left food out. Not for me, not for anyone. There was no note, just a small square of cloth beneath it, clean, folded, like someone meant for me to take it. I checked the barn, empty. The well, empty. Beyond the fence, just at the edge of the trees, a horse stood grazing, alone. I grabbed the bread and ran, stuffing it in my skirt before Clara woke. The next morning, it was tea. Sweet, dark tea in a dented tin cup, still warm enough to fog the glass. I held it to my cheek and closed my eyes. For a moment, I felt human again. On the third morning, he was there. Reed Maddox. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew the shape of his silence, knew the way he stood like nothing scared him, not even loneliness. He didn't speak at first, just nodded once, like we'd made some unspoken deal. Then he said my name, Emma. I hadn't heard it spoken gently in years. Not like that. Not without disgust or anger. I opened my mouth to answer, but my voice had gone somewhere deep. I just nodded back. Later that day, Clara found the tin cup. She held it up like a crime scene relic. Her eyes were lit with fury. "You thieving brat! Who've you been talking to? Who gave you this?" I stayed silent. It made her hit harder, but I couldn't stop now. Something had lit behind my ribs. A fire. Small, but burning. Clara's rage didn't scare me like before. It made me angry. Angry that someone could see me, feed me, name me, and I was still chained to this house of rot. She beat me with the wooden spoon until it broke. Then she screamed about how ungrateful I was, how I should be grateful someone took me in at all. But the fire didn't go out. That night, I didn't cry. I sat in the corner of the loft, my legs pulled tight to my chest, and stared out the cracks in the boards. I thought about bread, about tea, about the way Reed had said my name like it mattered. The bruises would fade, but the ember, that ember stayed. I started to dream again, not of fairy tales, just of something else, of what it might feel like to belong somewhere I didn't flinch at shadows. And every time the pain throbbed in my ribs, I repeated it in my mind like a prayer. "Emma, you're coming with me."
The morning after the storm, my eye was swollen near shut, and my lip bled when I smiled. Not that I had reason to, except that I was still thinking of tea, of warmth, of someone who said my name like it was worth saying. I waited for Clara to leave for town, then slipped from the loft. My legs felt stiff, but I moved quick and quiet, like I'd done 100 times before. I didn't stop until I reached the well, but I wasn't alone. He was there, not outside the fence, not watching from afar. Reed Maddox stood beside the well, sleeves rolled up, leather gloves in one hand, and the pulley wheel half disassembled. His shirt clung to the sweat on his back. His hat lay on the post beside him. This time he looked like he belonged here, not like a visitor, like he owned the place. I froze. He didn't look surprised to see me, just offered a slow nod, eyes flicking over the bruises on my face like they weren't unexpected. Pulley was rusted through, would have snapped sooner or later. I opened my mouth, unsure if I should speak. I had barely spoken at all the last 2 years. "Thank you," I whispered. He didn't say, "You're welcome," just grunted, wiped his hands, and stood straight. "You all right?" No one had ever asked me that and meant it. I didn't answer, just shrugged and looked at the dirt. Then I heard the door slam. Clara's voice shrieked across the yard. "Get away from her! You think you can just fix my will and take what's mine?" She marched toward us, apron flapping like a banner, her face twisted in outrage. Reed turned. He didn't flinch, didn't raise his voice. "If you lay hands on her again, I'll walk you to the sheriff myself." Clara froze. She looked between us like she'd swallowed something rotten. Her hand twitched, and for a moment I thought she might slap me right there. But she didn't. Reed stepped forward, calm and steady.
You want to lie to the law? Go ahead, but I've seen the bruises. You raise a hand again, you'll be explaining them in court." Clara's face went pale, then red. "You don't know who you're dealing with," she spat. He nodded. "I know exactly who you are." And with that, he tipped his hat, turned to me, and said, "You coming, Emma?" I didn't move. My legs felt like they weighed 100 pounds. I could feel Clara's stare burning through my skull. I could feel the years of fear choking my ribs. But Reed didn't look back. He just walked away slow, giving me the choice. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to move. Not because I was ordered, but because it felt like my choice. I didn't go with him that day, but I didn't run either. I stood there, between Clara and Reed, between the only life I had ever known and the one I might claim. That night, Clara didn't speak. She slammed doors, slammed pots, but she didn't touch me. She was afraid of him, of what he might do, of what I might do. And that made something inside me uncoil. He'd stood up for me. He'd made her afraid. I slept with my hands tucked under my cheek that night, like a child might. The pain was still there, but the fear was smaller. That mattered.
The day I left, there was no thunderclap, no grand escape in the dark, just a strange, still morning, bird song and the sound of Reed Maddox's boots on the dry ground outside. I was sweeping the stoop when he rode up. Clara saw him first. She stepped out like a queen, arms crossed, chin lifted. "You got nerve," she spat. Reed didn't dismount. He didn't need to. Just looked her dead in the eye and said, "She's coming." Clara's face twisted. "She's a minor. She ain't got no say." "She's got bruises," he said. "She's got half the town wondering what happens behind your shutters. I spoke to Sheriff Dooley. He's willing to file paperwork, temporary guardianship." She scoffed, but her hands fidgeted with her apron. "I could take you to court," she hissed. Reed shrugged. "Then I'll show 'em what I've seen, what everyone's seen." Clara's eyes darted to me, and I realized something. She wasn't yelling, she was stalling. She was losing. I didn't speak, just stepped off the stoop. My knees shook, but I held steady. She grabbed my arm. "You owe me," she hissed. "I took you in when no one else would. You're nothing without me." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "I'm not yours." That broke something in her. She didn't slap me, didn't shout. She just let go. And like that, it was done. I climbed onto Reed's horse. He helped me up like it was nothing, like I belonged there. As we rode, I didn't speak. Couldn't. My throat was a tight knot. Reed didn't force conversation, just let the wind do the talking. When we reached his cabin, the silence felt different. Not heavy, not cruel, peaceful. I slid off the horse, feet hitting dirt that somehow felt safe. The cabin wasn't big. One room, clean, a fire already going, bread cooling on the table, a book half read by the chair. He motioned toward a cot in the corner, freshly made. "Yours." I stood in the doorway, afraid to breathe, afraid it wasn't real. "You hungry?" he asked. I nodded, barely. He ladled soup into a bowl, set it in front of me. No commands, no threats, no sharp edges. I flinched when he placed the spoon beside it, couldn't help it. My hands trembled. He noticed, but he didn't say a word, just sat in his chair, watching the fire. I ate slowly, waiting for the slap, the insult, the punishment I'd been trained to expect. It never came. Later, he pointed to a shelf. "Books, if you lack 'em. Bed's yours, I'll sleep on the floor."
I stared at the cot, at the neat blanket, the softness. I hadn't had a bed of my own in 4 years. "I can sleep on the floor," I mumbled. He shook his head. "You're a guest, till you ain't." That confused me. "You mean, till I leave?" He looked at me then, really looked. "No, till you stop being a guest." I didn't understand it fully then, but the words settled in my chest like seeds. That night I lay in a bed that didn't bite. I watched the firelight flicker and listened to the night sounds. No yelling, no footsteps on stairs, just peace. I didn't sleep right away, but I didn't cry either, because for the first time in my life, I felt something I'd never dared hope for. Safe.
I learned quickly that Reed Maddox was a man of few words but quiet kindness. He didn't hover, didn't pry, didn't treat me like I was made of glass. He just gave me space, and slowly I grew into it. Mornings started with coffee and chores. He showed me how to mend fences, how to saddle a horse, how to clean a rifle without scratching the barrel. I fell in love with his mare, Luna, a chestnut with a white blaze and the gentlest eyes I'd ever seen. We rode out sometimes, just the two of us, saying almost nothing, but it never felt empty. Reed made silence feel like safety, not punishment. He taught me how to use a hammer, how to boil potatoes just right, how to patch my own boots, and every evening we ate by the fire, the same soup pot between us, with bread he let me bake. Sometimes I caught him watching me, not in a bad way, more like he was measuring who I was becoming. One evening I caught my reflection in the water barrel. My bruises had faded. My face looked older, stronger, and something like a smile, a real one, crept onto my lips. But peace never lasts long, not for girls like me. It was a Saturday when he came, a stranger on a brown mule, dressed like dust and tobacco. He smelled like whiskey and trouble, called himself Hank Cooper, said he was passing through but never looked at Reed when he said it. Reed's jaw tightened the moment he saw him. "You know him?" I whispered after the man rode off. Reed nodded. "Used to work with Clara's brother. Shifty sort." Next day, Clara showed up in town. Said she'd changed her mind, that she was concerned for my well-being, that Reed had taken me without proper process, claimed I was confused, delicate. She's got papers now, the sheriff told us. Says she wants a full appeal hearing. I felt sick, like the earth dropped out under me. Back at the cabin, I barely touched dinner. The thought of going back, of her hands, her words, that loft, made my chest close up. I won't go. Reed didn't flinch. We're not hiding. But what if the judge believes her? He looked me dead in the eyes. Then we make sure they don't. So we went to town the next morning, walked right down Main Street like we had nothing to be ashamed of. Reed spoke to the blacksmith, the storekeep, the school marm, anyone who'd ever seen Clara grab my arm or yank my hair in public. Turns out folks had seen things, had turned a blind eye out of politeness or fear. But now, with Reed standing there and me beside him, they started talking. The school marm wrote a letter. The pastor offered to speak. Even the general store owner gave a statement about the bruises he'd seen when Clara dragged me in by the collar for stealing bread I'd never touched. I didn't expect that. The world had never stood up for me before. But now, with Reed beside me and my voice steady, something changed. I wasn't just a broken girl anymore. I was someone worth protecting. And maybe, just maybe,
The hearing was held in a stuffy back room of the county courthouse, one dusty window letting in a streak of light that didn't reach the corners. The judge looked tired before it even began. Clara wore all black, like a mourning widow, and Hank Cooper sat beside her, smirking like he already won. Reed and I sat on the other side. He didn't touch my shoulder or whisper encouragement. He just nodded, slow and solid, like a tree that couldn't be moved. The lawyer Clara hired, some weasel-faced man with a gold tooth, painted me like a confused orphan, easily influenced, claimed Reed was unstable, a loner with no business raising a child, said I needed a woman's touch. I almost laughed at that. Clara's touch was still etched across my ribs. Then came the real knife. "She's an ungrateful child," she said on the stand. "Always has been. I fed her, clothed her. This man filled her head with lies. She's just a little girl. She doesn't know what's best for her." When the judge asked her if she'd ever struck me, she went stiff. "Only discipline," she said, "as any mother would." They let her speak for nearly an hour. Lies poured like oil, slick and endless. Then it was my turn. The room felt smaller when I stood. My knees knocked together. My mouth went dry. But I looked the judge in the eye. "I know what's best for me," I said. He motioned for me to go on. "I lived with Clara Stanton for 4 years. She beat me for spilling water, for taking too long to sweep, for speaking. I didn't get a bed. I slept in hay. She called me a stray, an animal. She broke spoons on my back." The lawyer tried to interrupt. The judge held up a hand. "Let her speak." I lifted my shirt, just enough to show the scar across my side, a raised welt, faint now, but still there. "She did that when I burned her biscuits." Gasps echoed around the room. I didn't look at Clara. I kept my eyes on the judge. "She never loved me," I said. "But Reed, he fed me when I was starving. He fixed the well. He taught me how to ride, how to read maps, how to tie knots and sharpen blades. He gave me a bed, a place, a name." My voice shook, but I didn't stop. "I never once raised a hand to me, never shouted, never made me feel like nothing. I'm not scared of Reed Maddox. I trust him." The judge leaned forward. "Is that what you want, child?" And I said it. I choose him. Not because he saved me, because he sees me. Clara exploded. "She's lying. She's ungrateful. The judge banged his gavel hard. "Enough." I didn't look back at her. I didn't need to. The court went quiet, and the judge spoke words I'll never forget. "Temporary guardianship is extended indefinitely. Until further review, Emma will remain with Mr. Maddox." Relief didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like breath, like finally exhaling after holding it for years. Outside the courthouse, folks nodded at us. A few even clapped my shoulder. Reed and I didn't say much on the way home, but as we neared the cabin, he glanced over. "You did good, Emma." I looked up at him. "So did you, Pa." He didn't react much, just gave a single slow nod. But his eyes, they were wet, and I knew I was home.
Peace is a quiet thing. At first, it made me uneasy, like the world had gone still before a storm. We settled into something like a routine. I woke to the smell of coffee, helped Reed with the livestock, practiced reading out loud from a book about riverboats.
I slept without nightmares for nearly a week. Then someone slit the chicken coop open. 3 hens gone, blood smeared on the door. 2 nights later, we found a dead coyote strung from a tree out back, gutted and hung like a warning. A note pinned to its paw, carved into the paper with a dull blade. Not over. Reed didn't say a word. He just stood there, eyes hard as river stones. I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. I just swallowed hard and went inside. That night, I slept with a rifle under the bed. When we went into town, eyes followed us. Some nodded, some didn't. One man muttered "thief" under his breath as we passed the store. I was used to fear, but now I felt something new beneath it. Anger. Then they set the barn on fire. It was just past midnight. Flames lit the sky like a second sun. Reed and I scrambled out barefoot, hauling water with shaking hands. Luna kicked and screamed inside the stall, and I threw the gate open before Reed could stop me. She barreled out in a panic, singeing her tail but otherwise whole. By sunrise, half the barn was ash. Sheriff Dooley came and poked around, but offered nothing but vague shrugs. He said, "Could have been lightning." Reed stared him down. It didn't rain. The sheriff tipped his hat. Some folks don't like what they don't understand. We were alone again. But I wasn't afraid. That same day, I picked up Reed's rifle and asked him to teach me how to shoot. He raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" I nodded. "I'm tired of being prey." We built a sign and nailed it to the edge of the gate. Reed carved the words himself. "No trespass, no mercy." He taught me to hold steady, to breathe before the trigger, not after. I practiced on cans, bottles, pine knots. My shoulder bruised from recoil, but I didn't complain. I was becoming something new. Not a child, not a victim. Something sharp. A girl with steel in her spine. Every night, Reed walked the perimeter. Every morning, I fed the chickens, the ones that remained. We built a new coop, this one with locks. One night, I caught Reed sitting on the porch with his hat in his lap, staring out at the fields. I asked him, "You think it'll stop?" He said, "Not soon." "Then what do we do?" He looked at me with tired, proud eyes. "We endure." And so we did. Together.
Spring came in slow, like a shy visitor. The snow melted into the creek, flowers pushed up through the cracks near the fence, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to look over my shoulder every hour. The attacks stopped. No more fires. No more threats. Maybe they got bored. Maybe the sheriff finally stepped in. Maybe word spread that I could shoot a nickel off a stump from 30 feet. I didn't care. The silence was a gift. I turned 14 that April. Reed didn't say much, but he left a package on my cot. Inside was a sketchbook, real pencils, and a carved wooden comb with my initials etched into the handle, E.M. He made it himself. Said he was no artist, but it was perfect. I started drawing in the evenings. Chickens, horses, sometimes faces I remembered from the courtroom, sometimes just the hills. Reed built another room onto the cabin. Said I needed space. I think he just wanted me to have a door I could close, one no one would ever bust through again. Then, one afternoon, I saw him. 2 figures on the trail. A girl about 10 walking with a limp, holding the baby on her hip.
both barefoot, both covered in dust. I opened the gate without thinking. She flinched when I stepped forward. Her eyes darted around like she expected someone to hit her. "I'm Emma," I said gently. "You hungry?" She didn't speak, just nodded barely. I brought him inside, fed him, gave the baby a blanket, and the girl a place to sit. Reed didn't ask questions, just nodded and set another bowl on the table. That night, the girl finally spoke. Her name was Lottie. The baby was June. Their mother had died last winter. The man they'd been left with, I won't write what he did, but I saw the bruises. I knew. I sat on the porch with her after we tucked June in. "You're safe now," I said. She looked at me like she wanted to believe it, but didn't know how. And I remembered that feeling, standing at a well, bruises on my arms, stomach aching, and a stranger saying, "You're coming with me." "I believe you," I said. And it felt like a circle closing. Lottie stayed, June too. Reed didn't say much, just built another bed and stretched the pantry. We taught him chores, taught him how to ride, how to stand tall and speak up, and plant seeds and shoot straight if they had to. By fall, the cabin wasn't just a refuge. It was home. Lottie laughed when she swung from the rope near the water barrel. June took her first steps across the kitchen floor. I painted the walls with flowers and birds, taught him to read, taught him to dream. One day I caught Reed watching us with a look that almost seemed like pride. "You ever regret it, bringing me here?" He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Never, not a damn second." I stood there, sun on my face, wind tugging at my braid, and knew this life, this family, was mine. I wasn't the girl from the loft anymore. I was Emma Maddox, builder of fences, breaker of chains, and protector of every girl who'd ever needed someone to say, "You're coming with me."